All right, I think we are now live. Just going to double check in the group to make sure that we are live. Awesome, we are live. Welcome everyone, welcome to this amazing interview, which I am really looking forward to. So to those of you who don't, or maybe new to the group, welcome. My name is Jaineel Mistry. I'm a former pharmacist as well as now a life leadership performance coach and the founder of Thriving Scholar, which is a self-mastery and leadership coaching company. And today I have the awesome Komal George with us, who is, I'm just going to do a quick intro. Welcome, Komal.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. So Komal is, for those of you who don't know Komal, she's a national level pharmacist turned career coach and business strategist to pharmacy professionals. And so I mean, I'm sure she'll expand on her work in a bit, but she's a certified holistic health and life coach, where she helps her clients increase their impact in their communities and their patients. And she also does a lot of amazing work in terms of diversity and inclusion, particularly for females in the field of pharmacy, which is really inspiring. So yeah, it's so great to have you here, Komal. And
thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Jaineel. It's so nice to be here and share this conversation with you, especially because this summer's just been a bit of a washout, really, hasn't it? So we're all like looking forward to doing things that, you know, that are inspiring. Yeah, so yes, I'm a pharmacist, obviously. I have been a pharmacist for over 16 years now, worked at various different levels in pharmacy, spent most of my time at community pharmacy, but I did start off as a clinical pharmacist way back when in hospital. And as you mentioned, I am now a certified health and life coach, and I'm a career coach to pharmacy professionals and a business strategist. And I absolutely love what I do, to be honest. I work with pharmacists one-to-one. I could really see that really with our careers, there's just so much that I feel like we don't really explore enough of. And I wanted to be able to support pharmacists to be able to do that, because my career path has been fairly non-linear, I would describe it as. You know, went into community pharmacy and then ended up working for a couple of the pharmacy national pharmacy organizations like the NPA and the PSNC, and really wanted to kind of like inspire and help other pharmacists to be able to do work that they really love. Because ultimately we all just want to create an impact on other people, and so that's really kind of what my driving force is, that my kind of mission behind what I do, really. And now my work kind of spans across working not only one-to-one with pharmacists, but I also run a group coaching program as well, which is much more focused on business development. But I absolutely love everything that I do. So I guess that's a very short introduction to myself, but I hope
thanks for that.
You get a gist of what I've done. Yeah,
great, thank you so much. And so for those of you who are joining live, I've got my phone here, so if you have any questions, feel free to type that out in the chat, then I can get to those. For those of you who are watching the replay, just let us know that you're watching. Type in replay in the comments, and if there are any kind of questions that you have, even if you're watching the replay, I can always forward them to Komal, and obviously you can connect with Komal after this as well. So awesome. Shall we just get into it then? I've got loads of questions.
Let's do it.
All right. So obviously, I've been an unfulfilled pharmacist in my journey, and I've had my own journey to that. But there are a lot of pharmacists right now who are in my network who I've spoken to prior to this interview, who have kind of inspired me to ask these questions. What would you say, you know, for someone who is, you know, a pharmacist and who has experience under their belt, they're either working in hospital community, but they find themselves a bit lost, a bit confused as to what direction to go in. They feel like they have these dreams and they're inspired to act on it, but then they end up back in square one again, and there's lacking progress, and then it becomes a spiral. So what have you seen that, you know, these pharmacists struggle with, and what is stopping them from going out there and really achieving career success?
Yeah, it's a really big question, because there's so many things that come into it, right? So, you know, and I talk from my own experience as well, that a lot of us, we get into pharmacy, we start doing our work, we start working as pharmacists, And I think a lot of us already come in with low confidence. And part of that is to do with the fact that for some of us, we may not have got into our first degree choice, right? We may not have got I remember my colleagues wanting to become doctors and they became pharmacists because they couldn't get into into medical school, right? Yeah. And so that already plays on your confidence. You're already going into your role and you're already going into being a pharmacist almost on a back burner. You're like, I'm not as good as everybody else. And that kind of ends up being a bit of a thread in our careers. And, if it goes up, if we continue to go through our careers without addressing that lack of confidence, it can really play heavily on the direction that we end up going in. And I see this time and time again with colleagues that I work with and pharmacists that I speak to. The number one reason why we don't achieve what we want to achieve in our careers is because of a lack of confidence. And more so than that, it's because we've not taken the time to really explore where that lack of confidence has come from and why it's important to why it's actually preventing us from getting to where we want to get to. And the other thing I would say is kind of speaking to the where to start kind of part of your question. A lot of us, and it's natural instinct, is because of what we've learned through growing up, right? Like you get a job, you do that job for a while, you perhaps initially might enjoy it, and then later on you just kind of feel like, okay, I don't really know where I'm going with this role, right? You get a bit tired, you want to do something else, but you don't know what that something else looks like, right? And where do most of us go? We'll go to the jobs boards, right? We will start looking at the jobs boards and we'll start looking at other roles and start thinking about us potentially doing those other roles. And what I would say is, and what I've learned is that's really the wrong place to start. It's the wrong place to begin, because it's almost like getting in your car and driving, but not really knowing where you're driving to. Do you know what I mean? You're just kind of like, oh, well, that job looks interesting. You're kind of like going for these jobs a bit on the fly without really having explored, well, what is it that I really like doing? What is it that I don't like doing? What's important to me as a person? And, not taking that kind of time to self-reflect first before you even embark on that, journey of trying to work out what it is that you want to do next. Because we're coming from that place of lack, aren't we? We're just like, I don't like this thing right now, so I think the thing that I have to do is to change it. And the only way I know how to change it is by looking to see what else is out there. And, it's a perfectly reasonable place for us to all start, right? It's what we know. Okay, you don't like your job right now. You've probably spoken to friends who've said, well, why don't you just look around for other roles, or I'll speak to such and such person about a role. But that to me is the wrong place to start.
I love what you said here, because with everything you mentioned, confidence and then kind of self-exploration, and from what I'm hearing from you is it starts with ourselves. It starts by actually lack of confidence. Really, we're the people getting in our own ways. It's not so much about external kind of jobs and the marketplace and opportunities for pharmacists, but really it's about ourselves. And the more we can, number one, find the genius and the greatness within us in terms of our own confidence, and then reflect on actually what do I want to create? What kind of career do I want to create for myself? Rather than looking at job boards, as you mentioned, where you're kind of you're kind of at the mercy of external people and places and all those kind of things. And so I really like what you've said there, because it really, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that is really the harder way of doing things. even though in the long term it's more fulfilling, because it's very easy to go out there and find a new job thinking it's going to make you happy, and then you're going to end up in the same place again and again, and thinking that happiness comes from a new job. But actually doing the deeper work, doing some self-reflection, which many of us, we were not used to because we're so used to going to the academic education system. Do you find that? Do you find that that's the more difficult work, and we have resistance towards that sometimes?
Always.
Mm-hmm.
We've all, you know, most of us feel uncomfortable about looking at our own selves.
Mm.
I think we've kind of been indoctrined into this kind of world. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it feels uncomfortable talking about yourself. It feels uncomfortable about, you know, kind of like telling people what you do. I remember I spent a long time not wanting to say what I did.
Mm.
You know, even the word pharmacist, saying to another person that I'm a pharmacist, felt really uncomfortable to me. Because there was a lot of things that was loaded around that term pharmacist in my mind. You know, not good enough, not as good as a doctor, for example.
Right.
Yeah. Or do I really want to tell people that I'm actually a pharmacist? You know, what are they going to think of me when I tell them that I'm a pharmacist? You know, so there's a lot of, it feels really uncomfortable to shine the light on ourselves. You know, when I say to pharmacists, you know, you really need to talk about the things that you've done, because you've done some incredible work. You know, it's that we think in our minds that we're boasting about ourselves. That's the connection we make. We make this connection that we think, I'm boasting about myself. So, you know, if I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't really talk about myself in that way.
Yeah.
But it's very much about flipping the script on it, because it's about you really thinking about, in your mindset, saying to yourself, well, if I actually do talk about the things that I've done, and I'm doing it in a genuine, honest way, because that's my experience, then actually I'm sharing my skills, my gifts, my knowledge with others. And isn't that what I intended to do in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you've really got to link it back to, well, why? You know, and this is an exercise that I do with every one of my clients when I work with them. Yeah. The very first step, and I'm sure you do similar thing, is, you know, to explore your why. Right? And, you know, and to explore what your personal values actually are.
Yeah.
And it feels uncomfortable, and yes, it's going to take some time, and yes, it's going to be, you know, you might there may be stop starting when you're doing this.
Yeah.
But that work up front is it will set you up so well for what's to come.
Yeah.
Because without doing that, you really, going back to my analogy earlier, you're really just getting into the car and not really knowing where you're going to go. And you're just kind of like reading the road signs and going, oh, well, that way looks perhaps good. I don't know. It might be, it might not be. And you're kind of doing things on a bit of a whim, you know, and you're taking on roles and you're taking on job opportunities on a whim.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said there, and you're right. You know, at first, you know, it's the same thing which I do to my clients who, you know, some of them are pharmacists, some of them are not. But it comes to that self-discovery part. It's actually, yes, what is your why, but also, I think in my journey as well, what helped me is, you know, sometimes what is my purpose or what is my why can be sometimes a very daunting question, because it requires such deep kind of introspection. But what sometimes is what has helped me, and I'm sure it's helped you, kind of just what is feeding me energy right now? What is exciting to me, isn't it? Because if something doesn't excite you, then like no matter what you know, challenges come, it's going to be very difficult to stick through it and kind of follow through and actually, you know, yeah, you know, you want to have fun at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
At work.
Yeah, it's so true, actually. And that is a really important exercise that you've just described about which activities give you energy and which activities drain the energy away from you. And there's one thing, you can do that exercise, but you've got to be really honest with yourself. About what comes out of that exercise. And I always use this as an example because it's the big elephant in the room that we often don't talk about as pharmacists, right? And we don't actually like dispensing. Right? There's not many pharmacists that you will speak to who will say, I absolutely love dispensing. It's my thing. That's what I love doing all day, every day. Right? We don't. And it's like, we've got to be really honest with ourselves. And hold the mirror up to ourselves and say, is this what I really want to do? Can I see myself doing this day in, day out and feeling energized by it? Right? And so looking at your day and saying, well, what areas feed me and what areas don't feed me is such an important activity, but also being comfortable with what the answers to that activity are as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you've said there is really important, being comfortable with whatever comes out, because sometimes what can come out can be scary, and that may require change, and that may require us to take some form of action that may be a bit uncomfortable and move towards something which might have not been in our initial career plan.
Yes, totally. Right. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is something that I talk about a lot, and that definitely is something that we need to to start embracing, I think.
Cool. So another question which I had was, and this is where I think you're really way better at kind of explaining than I am. So obviously people in my network, even my wife, for example, was downstairs and asked her the question of what would you like to ask? Because I feel a bit more distant from pharmacy now. However, with someone like her, wants to use her previous skill set, wants to use her experience, and she's an independent prescriber. She works in GP surgery. But she's not, may not be as energized by the work, but she wants to do something using her skill set in the future. So obviously nowadays with digital health and a lot of things happening, there's so many scope for pharmacists. But from your perspective, what do you see as potential avenues that people could explore if it is right for them? Like, how is it changing right now for pharmacists out there?
Well, I mean, it's changing really quite rapidly. And it's changing in ways that, and in fact, it's already changed in ways that we didn't even foresee. Like, 4 or 5 years ago, a digital pharmacist was a very rare thing. Now it's quite a common thing. And obviously COVID has contributed heavily to the use of technology across all sectors. Healthcare's obviously not immune to that. Healthcare's, probably been one of the sectors that has embraced it much more rapidly than some other sectors, perhaps. And because of that, there are roles that we don't even know that exist right now, right? That we can put our skill set to. And that's what I get really excited about, because I think, well, when people come to me and they say, they'll ask me questions like, Komal, I want to become a digital pharmacist. And most of them don't even know what a digital pharmacist is. Like it just sounds good. So they're like, okay, I think I want to be a digital pharmacist. But what I would say is that now more than ever, it's really, really important to know who you are and what is important to you and what you stand for. Because the more you spend the time on doing that and exploring that and making that known, the more opportunities will be able to come your way. And that, I think, is something that we as pharmacists feel really, really uncomfortable about, but we really need to start embracing, because I've seen pharmacists and I know pharmacists who are doing roles where you would have never placed a pharmacist historically, but they're there. And they're there because they got really clear about what it is that they find interesting and that they are passionate about. And they started talking about that. And that's how they got those roles. Those roles didn't necessarily exist. They didn't have pharmacist in the title.
Yeah.
Right. But they saw an opportunity and they put themselves forward, and now they are forging a completely new path for themselves.
Yeah, that what you've said there has really resonated, because it's come down to what we were talking about before, but it's like it's to master career, to master profession, it really comes down first to self-mastery. And what you said, because I'm going to go back to the car analogy that you're using, but say, for example, once we have gone clear on who we are, what we want to create, and the kind of role which is great for us, it's like looking for a car. Like, once you know what car you want to buy, you start seeing that car on the road everywhere you go. And it's like, once you've got that clarity in what you want and who you are, then you'll start seeing opportunities, and you start creating opportunities, and the opportunities come to you because that's what you're putting out there into the world.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, yeah, I love that. And I think, this is this is something, again, that I'm seeing a lot of, and where I maybe have been wrong in the past in my early careers. I looked at what's out there, and then stuck to that. But actually, when you come from a place of creation, I see what career would I like to create. You're not limited by the way the fancy world is and what the medical world. You're in pure creation mode. You're creating your future. You're creating your reality. You're creating your path.
Yeah, and that's, it's a really scary place for people. Like, they think to themselves, scary place in the sense that we're used to having a defined destination, right? We're used to, and that's what we train for.
Yeah.
Right? We train 4 years at university, 1 year of pre-reg, 5 years in total. Obviously, that's going to change with foundation pharmacists, but that's what we're trained for. We're trained for a particular path. And we have to kind of really unlearn that, because with the way in which things are changing, the path is not set. In fact, in a lot of cases, the path hasn't even been created yet. And so we have to get comfortable with being in a place where saying to yourself, I am the creator of my career. That the career is not created for me. I'm the creator of my career.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really, it's a subtle mindset shift, but it's a really important one.
Yeah.
Because it's from that place that you are actually starting to create opportunities for yourself. I see roles now, and a lot of people ask me questions like, where do I find these roles that you're talking about? Like, where are they? And a lot of times, as we've just mentioned, that these roles, you create them. But also what I found is, for a lot of companies and organizations, they're no longer advertising these roles in the traditional places. They're actually advertising these roles through their own staff.
Wow.
And I see that on LinkedIn. I see these roles being advertised through employees of a particular business on their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a LinkedIn jobs post.
Right.
It's simply being posted through those individuals. And you've got to ask yourself, why? Why is that happening? And it's happening because they want to find people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I'm connected, or I follow somebody in that company and that organization that I really like, because I really like their ethos and I really like their mission and I really like what they do, then I'm more inclined to be someone who will be successful in that role. And so, we've really got to flip the way in which we view job searching and job finding.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. you know, when you mentioned the know, like, and trust, you know, it's like you are your own business, really. Just even from a business perspective, you are the business. You are selling your service as a pharmacist to an employer. The more you treat yourself as your own business, and so that's about building relationships. It's about putting yourself out there, and that really resonated. And so, and obviously, that's not how we've been kind of conditioned to think, and the way that we've been kind of trained. So what skills, so say someone is kind of open to exploring maybe a new mindset, a new way of looking at their career, which you've introduced us to today. What skill sets would you say is good to focus on now? Like your clients who have done really well in their journey, what skills did they embody that allowed them to really succeed?
There's a few things. I think the first one is, do not underestimate the impact of relationship building. Right? And, you know, we talk about networking a lot, and, you know, it's like networking is just kind of like bandied about a lot, right?
Yeah.
But it's true, because networking is more than just connecting with someone. It's about relationship building.
Yeah.
And you really need to spend the time and effort on relationship building, right? If you're not finding the people to build those relationships with in your current working environment, find them elsewhere.
Yeah.
Start going on LinkedIn, start connecting with people, right? Start having conversations with them. So that's the number one thing. I would also say that, you know, in terms of kind of like other skill sets that are really, really important when it comes to this, is you really need to be open. You've got to be really open with the opportunities that you could potentially walk into, right? And sometimes we miss opportunities because we are not open, right? We're not open to, you know, to the possibility that we might be able to do a particular role, or that we might have the skill set to be able to do a particular role. Yeah. So that's number two. Like, you know, we really need to spend the time on that. And I would go back to what we've said, you know, earlier on, but that self-reflection piece is so important. And I can't tell you how important it is for you to actually, you know, and I would say this as a coach, obviously, but get yourself a coach, like work with a coach, because there's a reason why you're stuck. And the reason why you're stuck is your current pattern of thinking.
Yeah.
And you can't, none of us can change our pattern of thinking on our own. Right? We have to change that pattern of thinking with support, because we don't know the questions to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's what a coach will help you to do. A coach will help you to ask the right questions of yourself. And, you know, and ask you questions that you've never asked of yourself. And that, I think, is absolutely critical, because, you know, you need to, that is your self-reflection and your self-development. And everyone I know who's been successful has done those things. They have built relationships, they've been open, and they've got themselves support, you know, along the way. And those are really, really important things that I feel personally I'm going to continue to do throughout my career. Like, I'm not going to stop doing those things. You know, I'm not going to stop relationships. There's not going to be a point at which I'm going to stop relationship building. Yeah. I'm going to stop being open. I'm going to stop, you know, having a coach, basically.
Yeah, those three things are, the way that you've said them in really simplistic terms, you know, building relationships, being open, and then obviously getting support, getting a coach, getting out. In the way I see coaching is, you know, getting out your own head, and, you know, allowing you, because if you keep on thinking the same way, you're going to get the same results, right? And so kind of being open to that as well. So I think I had a question in my head just now, which is, hopefully it comes back to me, but actually this is it. So what I'm also hearing from you is that this is not so much, you know, has, what our experience of the education system and the way that our job has previously worked is, we work for something and then we get the reward. We work for something and then we get the reward. We go to university, then we get the degree. We do that work and then we get the promotion. But the way that I'm hearing you say these three things, it's actually it's a way of living. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of being in the world. It's who are you being? It's, there's one way you can look at this, which I'm hearing from you, is you can either look for that role, get to that place, and then be stuck there and then go through the same thing again and again. Or you can change the way that you're living, change the way that you're being, actually continue to build. You want to be someone who's confident, be someone who's always developing your network, be someone who is open-minded and putting yourself out there, which can be quite scary, especially if you haven't worked on the confidence piece. And, coaching and support and continual education and continual personal professional development is a way of living. It's not something that you do just for one result. It's just the way that you are living now, and you're embodying this as you are. And so that's what I'm really hearing from you. It's like your lifestyle is these three things now.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. It's really interesting that you've put it that way. But yeah, I would totally agree with you. One of the biggest lessons I learned, because I spent a bit of time away from pharmacy, and I say away from pharmacy because I set up my own turmeric supplement, and during that time I spent a lot of time in the health and wellness space. I spent a lot of time often being the only pharmacist in the room, having conversations with people who have no idea what a pharmacist does, or and really kind of like opening myself up to a completely new community, new environment, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest lessons that I learned from that time was that in order to be successful at anything in life, you have to imagine that you are that successful person now.
100%.
Right? So and in order to do that, you've really got to regularly self-reflect and say to yourself, well, am I being that person? What does that person do? And am I actually being that person on a daily basis? And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I don't do that 100% of the time, but I do take the time to reflect and say to myself, did I do the things that I said I was going to set out to do today? And if I didn't, why didn't I? And what stopped me from doing that?
Yeah.
And those really, really simple reflective activities, and just kind of having that expansion about what is possible for you.
Yeah.
And coming from that place, really, that I think is one, if there's one thing that you take away from today's conversation, it's that you have to imagine yourself as being able to do that thing, or being able to do that role. And it's really interesting because when I reflect back now, throughout my career, I've never gone into a job interview thinking that I'm not going to get the job.
Yeah.
I've always gone into a job interview thinking that I can get that job and that I am already doing that job. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was actually absolutely critical to me getting roles in my career. Because even if there were things on that job description that I felt like were really outside of my comfort zone and I didn't quite tick the box, I still imagined myself being able to do that role. And that's the way we have to think about our lives. We have to think about our lives as being able to do the thing that you think that you really want to do, and working from that place, rather than this current state, which is I'm not enough. And the rest, I don't have enough confidence, and the rest of it.
Yeah. Love that. I'm smiling so much right now because we could riff on this so much. And you're speaking my language here, because I could go really woo-woo and spiritual on this, but we get what we focus on, isn't it? And the more we focus our attention on something, the more it expands. And it's like, that unto which it likes, that which is like unto itself is drawn. And so the more that we can be that person, the more that's the energy that we're going to be radiating. And you think about universal law, that's what we attract in our lives, right? And so I love that you put that in there. I don't really see a lot of professionals like you who are really experienced talking like that, which is so refreshing. Well, not in my experience of having conversations. There probably are, but which is so great to hear. And I think we need more of that in the workplace. We need, even in whether you're someone who's a pharmacy owner or whether you're working for a firm, the more that we can even coach our employees and build our teams in a place of who do you want to become, like, and being that person, being that entrepreneur, being that pharmacist. That's what's going to create more of that. And so I love that you've said that. It's so refreshing. I think one thing which I've just which I forgot to mention earlier when you were talking is, at first, this mindset shift which you're talking about, it can be quite difficult initially, but it's actually quite liberating, because you are the creator of your own career, your professional life, your life, and that's so liberating. Like, you are in full control.
I get really excited about that. And I think, wow, there's so many possibilities. Even now, where I see roles and I think I could do that. Right? Even now, I come across jobs and I think, wow, that's an amazing job. I could absolutely 100% do that. Do I want to is a different question, but that's a different, you're sitting in a different place now. You're not sitting in this place of lack, right? You're not sitting in this place of, I could never do that job. I put a post on my LinkedIn today about the first thing that goes through your mind when you see a job that you would absolutely love.
Oh yeah, I saw that this morning, actually. That's a great post.
Right? And it's really interesting to ask yourself that question, because option one is, I could so do that job, I'm going to go and apply for it right now. Right? Option two is, that is my dream job, but it's way out of my league. Like, I would never be able to do that. I'm not good enough, don't have enough experience. It's just not quite right. And you kind of find all these reasons for why you're not right for that job. And then the third one is, it's a great role. Not, I'd love it, but actually my colleagues got better experience than I do, and I'm going to tell them about it, and maybe they can go for it. Right? And it's like, being honest with yourself with the answer to that question will reveal a lot about how you view yourself in your career path, and whether you actually view it as a place of abundance, and that there is opportunity, and that these opportunities are for me to find, or whether you view it as, I'm just never going to get there.
Beautiful. And it's just coming back to what you've said there about mind, is being able to control your own mind, really. And one thing which I say to myself sometimes when I have that, or I say to many of my clients, is, you don't need to believe your own thinking. It's just thought. You don't have to believe it, right?
It's so true.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Cool. We could talk for much longer, but I know that we want to keep this fairly short and succinct. So it's been such a great discussion. So where could people find you? Would it be the best place on LinkedIn? I can put that in the comments of this live, and if you're watching on YouTube or anything like that, I'll make sure it's in there somewhere. Is that the best place for people to find you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always open to connection, and always open to having a conversation. LinkedIn's the best place to find me. So I'm also on Twitter as well, so you can find me there.
All right.
But predominantly LinkedIn.
Amazing. Well, I'm so glad that we connected at some point a few months ago, and had this conversation. I think I speak to many coaches, obviously, because being in that network, but it's really refreshing to hear someone like you who's really experienced in the pharmacy world and now doing what you do. So that's super inspiring, and thank you for sharing everything that you had shared today. It's been great, just to kind of, especially those three things that you mentioned. I love that. So there's so many great insights. For those of you who are watching live or on the replay in the Facebook group, let us know what your top 2 or 3 insights were from today. That would be awesome. And if you have any questions for Komal, you can either post them below or you can connect with her directly on LinkedIn, which I'll make sure that the link is there for you to connect with her. And yeah, hope you guys had a great kind of insights from this interview, and hopefully we shall speak to you soon, and take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.